closer. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I won't always smoke like hookah. Talking reparations. America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all in Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regret, we only facing the threat.
This is the sound of FBA.
It's a cut on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threat. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine, you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X to my jeans and I...
Nobody knows why liars lie. Winners are not allowed to allow losers to rewrite history. It's God's side and the other side. Country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good, Uber bitch, and look like Mr. Potato Head.
I didn't want to be a movie star.
No, you couldn't be a movie star. Ricky Smiley can't act, cause Ricky Smiley can't act. Why is he in a dress again? He didn't be wanting to party, and you gotta tell him no. Sid ain't got no special, you remember? Steve ain't got no special, you remember? Ricky ain't got no special, you remember? Sir, I have 12 comedy specials. P. Diddy or whoever you is, TVJ, 10 of them. I won't stop burning you down until there ain't nothing left. Rubble on top of rubble, and I'll still be bombing. Look like a wall, Richard. Look like a wall. You didn't say no. Look like a wall, Richard. Look like a wall. You didn't say no.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, so let's get ready to get into it. Hello, OG Patrice, 504 Nola is in the virtual building. Nessie X. All right, Pearly, I see you. Buckhorse DC, Anita Harrell, Claudette, Queen Amoni Huey. All right, let's get into it. Latasha, Need. All right, shout out to all of my loyal royals and everyone tuned into the Queen, and a big shout out to my moderators because y'all know they be putting in work. Okay, I see you, Mr. Elevation, We the People, Deronda, Leon is in the virtual building. Let's get into it. Spiritoso. Okay, so with that all being said, DJ Big Six, Reggie, all right. I was almost on time today, guys. Wasn't so late. All right, Christy Love, Anita Harrell, and Millicent. Okay, so before we get started, as per usual, y'all know I have to keep the lights on. I see you, Dangerous. Let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. Here we go.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right, so don't forget you can order 12 Tribes hair oil from Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, and don't forget she sells beard oil as well. Now, with that all being said, let's get ready to get into it because it is a whole lot of nefarious going on. Okay, so first off, Trump and his son are being sued Okay, they're being sued by a woman by the name of Maria Hadley, who's a former employee. All right, she's suing the company, and other people are listed as well. And then we have Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly, is suing the Department of War. Okay, because Trump has, because Trump is so nefarious and he goes against his rivals and all that, Trump has basically wants to demote the man from his rank and then cut his retirement pay. All right, and then they were going in on the protesters yesterday. We're going to get into that, where they threw tear gas. And then also Tucker Carlson. What in the hell does Tucker Carlson know about FBAs? Okay, because he was talking about that during an interview, and there was previously Byron Donalds has been called a tether. Okay, so we're going to go to that footage too. That was from a few months ago, and I forgot to tell you all about it. But anyway, let's get into it. First, let's go to Trump's tweets that he was posting. I'm sorry, not his tweets. What he was posting to Truth Social. Okay, likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have noticed you have not been receiving the notifications, please be sure to double check and make sure you're still subscribed. Okay. Now, that all being said, here are some of the things Trump was posting. He says the actual numbers that we could have to pay back if for any reason the Supreme Court were to rule against the United States of America in tariffs would be many hundreds of billions of dollars. And that doesn't include the amount of payback that countries and companies would require for the investments they're making on building plants, factories, and equipment for the purpose of being able to avoid the payment of tariffs. Now, when these investments are added, we're talking about trillions of dollars. It would be a complete mess and almost impossible for our country to pay. Anybody who says that it can be quickly and easily done would be making a false and inaccurate or totally misunderstood answer to this very large and complex question. It may not be possible, but if it were, it would be dollars that would be so large that it would take many years to figure out what number we're talking about, and even who, when, and where to pay. Remember, when America shines brightly, the world shines brightly. In other words, if the Supreme Court rules against the United States of America on this national security bonanza, we're screwed. President Donald J. Trump. Do you all hear this, man? Do y'all hear him? Now, of course, him posting this is his way of warning the Supreme Court, okay, not to rule against him. All right, putting pressure on them. That's what he's doing. So, in other words, if the Supreme Court rules against the United States of America on this national security bonanza, we're screwed. I want you all to pay attention to something that Trump does also. Trump says a lot. I noticed that he says the United States of America. Okay. Usually presidents just say the United States. But I've been noticing that Trump says the United States of America. Why is that important? Because when you use the word of, that means you're talking about the corporation, the corporate entity. Okay, the United States is a corporation, and some people don't know that. That's why we have a president and a vice president. Okay, not like a monarchy where they have a king and queen. This is a whole corporation. Okay, and so when Trump is saying the United States of America, he's speaking in a business lingo. You know, Trump's always been a big businessman, so that's why he's acting and treating this country as if it's a company that he's running. So now it makes sense as to why in the world he's running it into the ground. Okay, that he's running it into the ground, because we all know that whenever Trump had businesses, that's exactly what he did. How many times has he filed for bankruptcy? He's run every company, not all, but most of it, into the ground. Okay, let's not forget Trump University for one. All right, sneaky devil. That's why he says United States of America, because I was like, why is he speaking of it in the corporate aspect? Because I'm like, he knows people probably don't really know what he's talking about, most people. Now, with that all being said, let's continue, because that's one thing he posted, saying that we're screwed. Then he posted about the FBI. He said, these FBI agents are total scum in their own way, no better than the insurrectionists in Portland. What about the ones that were at the Capitol in the United States? The ones that he pardoned, no less. He says, in their own way, no better than the insurrectionists in Portland, Minnesota, Los Angeles, etc. Cash better get them out now. Radical left lunatics put in by the auto pen and Obama. Ah! So once again, blaming the previous administrations, okay? And you know he's talking about Biden when he says the auto pen. All right. And so anyway, very crazy. Then he goes on to post about congestion pricing in Manhattan. Says congestion pricing in Manhattan is a disaster for New York. It's got to be ended immediately. It's never worked before and it will never work now. I love New York and hate to see it being destroyed so rapidly with such obviously foolish policy. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So Trump appears to get all of his messaging out. See, that's why I like to see what he's posted, because he gets his messaging out through social media. Okay, this is what the president of the United States of America, as he calls it, that's what he says. And that's what he does. Find it very interesting. Now, here's what Melanie Zanona posted, saying lots of anger inside the GOP over the Powell probe. See, people are ticked off because he's going after the Fed chair. Okay, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, as I reported to you on yesterday. So she says lots of anger inside the GOP over the Powell probe, even from Powell critics. So even some of the people who are against this man feel like it's a problem. One House representative told me maybe we should lose the majority so White House and leadership can stop making stupid decisions. Our leadership and administration just keep doubling down on stupid. Y'all hear this? This is what they're saying about your own presidents, our own country's administration. Doubling down on stupid. Well, yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Now, here's what they also had to say about the boat strikes and how they just invaded Venezuela. So they say even accepting the Trump administration's claim that there is an armed conflict with suspected rug runners, the laws of war bar perfidy. So let's talk about it. They say the Pentagon used a secret aircraft. Now listen, I did not know they did this. This is so sneaky. So remember how they were putting the airstrikes on the boats with the likely innocent people who were just fishermen? So they were pretending that they were a civilian aircraft. Okay, they had it painted so they could sneak up on these people. When the people see them, they won't know to run for cover. How low down and nefarious is that? But let's talk about it. The Pentagon used a secret aircraft painted to look like a civilian plane in its first attack on a boat that the Trump administration said was smuggling rugs, killing 11 people last September, according to officials briefed on the matter. Now, the aircraft also carried its munitions inside the fuselage rather than visibly under its wings, they say. The non-military appearance is significant, according to legal specialists, because the administration has argued its lethal boat attacks are lawful, not murders, because President Trump determined the United States is in an armed conflict with rug cartels. But the laws of armed conflict prohibit combatants from feigning civilian status to fool adversaries into dropping their guard, then attacking and killing them. That is a war crime of perfidy. Now, retired Major General Stephen J. Lepper, a former deputy judge, advocate general for the United States Air Force, said that if the aircraft had been painted in a way that disguised its military nature and got close enough for the people on the boat to see it, tricking them into failing to realize they should take evasive action or surrender to survive, that was a war crime under armed conflict standards. Okay, do you all hear this? And this is retired Major General Stephen J. Lepper right there, who gave that information. I find this all so low down and dirty. Okay, this is what they're out here doing. All right, and still lying and still acting like everything's on the up and up, like they didn't break any sorts of laws or whatever. But also what I found interesting is that Ben Masalis reported that Trump was busy sending out emails, and it's a whole grift. Do you all remember once in the chat, One's in the chat, beloveds. If you all remember when I exposed the Black Lives Matter scheme, when they were having all that money being donated, and it was being donated and they were giving it to Democratic vendors. You all remember that story, right? So this is what it looks like, similar to what Trump's doing. Now, I'm not saying he's running a scam. I'm just saying he's doing a whole grift because it's set up like the one that I found with Black Lives Matter. Okay, so here's what he's got going on. Now, he sends an email, right? Here's what it says. I am Donald J. Trump. This is starting to hurt. Ha! Do you hear this? J.D. Vance, Don Jr., Team Trump, and I. This says, ouch, Ben, this is starting to hurt a little. Now he's talking to Ben Masalas of the Midas Touch because this is the one who posted this email. He says, J.D. Vance, Don Jr., Team Trump, and I have reached out to you several times to accept your Trump merit badge. We're getting worried. It's President Trump here. This is your final chance before the deep state deactivates this link for good. Accept Trump merit badge. Honey, I probably wouldn't have clicked on it thinking that they were trying to, hack my computer. Okay. So then when you click, this is what comes up. And then it basically tells you, he said that basically they want you to donate. Look, it says $2,500, accept Trump merit badge. That's when you get the badge. Talking about we've been reaching out to you so you can accept your badge and we're getting worried. And then click this link before they delete it permanently forever. So you can get your badge. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to need $2,500 first. I'm talking about the grift that keeps on grifting. Trump will not stop. And you know what I find interesting about that number, 2,500? Wasn't it Donald J. Trump with his lying self who said that he was going to send all of this $2,000? But it looks like the only one making $2,000 is him. Okay, he said he was going to send us all $2,000 for the tariffs revenue, right, that was generated. And then the other day, he seems to have forgotten all about it. Oh, Jason, when did I say that? When you were lying, as usual. You absolutely cannot. Now, with that all been said, let's go to these videos of the protesting and the and ICE. It's all nefarious. Look at all that tear gas. Okay, now that's just crazy. Absolutely nefarious. Now here's another video of ICE standing out there like they're ready to go to war or something.
Popping up across Minneapolis. You can see they're banging on the door.
Outside of the car. 50, right?
No, not 50-50, dog.
You got a gun.
Oh my goodness. They're out there doing those people dirty, honey. Okay. Out there doing those people dirty. I want y'all to pay attention. Mr. Elevation said, is that a dog whistle? Okay, Jeff ATL said, these liberal white folks and others better stop effing with ICE. ICE needs to stop effing with them too. Edward says, these protesters are helping bring in the surveillance state. Yes! Of course. Okay, and of course it would be them, not us. This is going to cause, this is going to cause lead to martial law or something. Reggie says they're in sneakers, not even combat boots. That's how you know they're unorganized. Honey, who wears sneakers? Okay, when you out there in them streets, Reggie, they don't know the term boots on the ground literally means that's what you're supposed to wear, boots. Okay, they got that term for a reason. All right, Reggie said they're out there in sneakers. All nefarious, but let me continue. Okay, so now let's talk about it. It's like I said, the Florida governor candidate had called Byron Donalds a tether. Yes, he did. So with that all being said, we're going to go to the footage. Because like I said, this was from some time ago, and I forgot to tell you all about it, but I wanted to bring it up now because we're going to talk about Tucker Carlson talking about FBA. Okay, y'all, FBA have made it to the mainstream. Please pay attention. Okay, here we go.
It's a challenging topic.
Hold on. I almost forgot my overlay. Hold on just a second.
For people. However, I want people to be able to see how, unfortunately, when we have immigrants to come into our country, Americans can't do politics. We have to be able to do politics for Americans. And this is something that we have to tackle. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that's right. And let's just be completely honest of what Byron Donalds is. Byron Donalds is a tether. He is not an American descendant.
Wait a minute, James. How do you know the term tether?
He is a tether. He is not an American descendant of slaves. So when Byron Donalds cries like he has over the last couple of weeks because I call him a slave to AIPAC, a slave to corporate interest, a slave to the pro-immigration lobby that has hurt every race of Americans, but has also hurt Black Americans who disproportionately work in food, hospitality, leisure, and customer service. He is in no position, has no right to be complaining about me calling him a slave when he has absolutely no direct descendant of slavery in his family. He's from Panama. He's from Belize. His dad's from Jamaica. Irrelevant.
I know this is.
Do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this? Wow, this is interesting for me. Now, he done sat up there and called this man a whole tether because Byron had the nerve to get mad because he called him a slave. Told him, you have no connection to slavery in this country. You're not even from here. You see how they copy what Black folks say? You see how they get their talking points? Okay, just pay attention. Jeff ATL talk about they using our terms now. When have they not? They have always done that. You didn't hear Pete Hegseth saying they effed around and found out? Okay, that's something common these days. But now let's go to this interesting interview with Tucker Carlson. Okay, and when he's sitting here talking about the foundational Black Americans. I'm going to share my screen. That's right. Nelson G said they listen to everything we say. Exactly. You already know. Edward says stealing our talking points. Okay. But see, here's the thing. He obviously liked that definition because that helped to prove, not to prove his point, but that basically was how he was able to just go in on Donaldson for getting mad because really, him calling that man a slave, he knows that was racist. Okay, he knows it was racist, but he can get out of it and say, hey, you weren't a slave. You don't have ties to slavery in this country, so you can't say anything. Okay, so it worked in his favor because they'll use our talking points when they work in their favor, not in ours. Because think about the word woke. When Black people started to wake up to the truth and start seeing beyond the pale and the veil and all of that. And then what did they do? They demonized that word woke. Okay, like it was something nefarious or something negative. When it works for them, oh yeah, they'll definitely use it for something positive. It's for their points.
And they called you a racist for that?
They did. Which is actually quite interesting because I got a call from the Foundational Black American Society here in Florida who reminded me that Byron's Mother is Jamaican. He is Panamanian, and they found it quite insulting, in their words, that he would try to claim victimhood of slavery without a single descendant of American slaves in his family.
I like those foundational guys.
They're so good.
Tariq Nasheed and all. I mean, I don't agree with everything, but they've got a perspective. If your family's been here 400 years, and the descendants of a lot of American slaves or families have been here 400 years, I don't know. I think that gives. I'll listen to you. Like you've
100%.
you've got a point of view that is legitimate. I think.
Yeah. And they're unequivocally heritage Americans.
That's for sure.
100%.
They're definitely heritage Americans, if anyone is. And, someone rolls in from Ghana and gets an MSNBC slot and starts speaking on behalf of black people. It's like, shut up, honey. You've got nothing to do with this.
Right.
That's
Literally.
a fair perspective,
right.
I think.
And so it's good to actually see them call them out for that. That's actually cultural appropriation. Appropriating the struggle of slavery.
I totally agree.
And the struggle of slavery was real. I don't think Republicans ever want to really whitewash that. It's real, right? But for
we're
Byron,
against slavery.
We're against it.
Whether it's in the, West Bank or here or anywhere. Yeah, against it.
And so for Byron's group, his team, to call me and essentially our entire supporting base racists for saying that you're a slave when quite literally you took $45 million. You won't tell us what you agreed to take that money this early in a primary, which is unprecedented. You know this, how unprecedented that kind of money is in an uncontested primary until now. But secondarily, to actually go out and try to gaslight us and think that you're just one of those guys that has been here, since the early 1800s and your family was in the struggle too. You're not. And that's a very interesting term that the foundational Black Americans use. It's called tether. They're tethering these tethers like Byron Donalds. They come here literally one generation in, and they try to just sit around and act so folksy that we're all part of the same struggle and we're all down on and we need to fight against. No, you just got here, dude. Like the Haitians, like the guys from Ghana who just got here, you don't get to just be a part of our system and then lecture us about how our country went wrong.
And they called you a racist for that?
They did. Which is actually quite interesting because I got a call from the Foundational Black American Society here in Florida who
I want you all to pay attention. What I find interesting is that, yes, they love those talking points. And the reason they love those talking points specifically is because they're divisive. Those talking points are divisive and they know it. And so, of course, they're going to be for that. See, they like to sow seeds of division amongst us themselves. But when we do it, they don't have to. And so that's why they're enjoying that conversation. They're enjoying, that this is a divisive tactic. Okay? Because they're like, oh, you have no ties. And it's good that they're separating. Of course, they like that. Because what do I keep reminding you constantly so you never forget that J. Edgar Hoover said the biggest threat to the United States, not a nuclear bomb, not famine or anything like that, not disease, pandemics, no. He said Negro unity. Okay, Negro unity. Too bad and so sad that all of the heavily melanated people can't get together and unify. That is why we stay where we are. Now, with that all being said, and that's really not our fault, in my opinion. It's some of the people that come here. It's mostly their fault, in my opinion. They're the ones that come here and look down on us and act like they're better because they listen to the whitewashed BS that they're told and fed when they get here or prior to them coming here. Okay, so now let's talk about Senator Mark Kelly's lawsuit. Okay, he has filed a lawsuit. Senator Kelly sues the Pentagon over Trump administration, their attempts to punish him. So Democratic Senator Mark Kelly sued the Pentagon on Monday over attempts to punish him for his warnings about illegal orders claiming the Trump administration trampled on his constitutional rights to free speech. Now, Kelly, a former U.S. Navy pilot who represents Arizona, is seeking to block his censure from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth last week. Okay, now Hegseth announced on January the 5th that he had censored Kelly over his participation in a video that called on troops to resist unlawful orders. You all remember that video because I shared it with you. Hegseth said the censure by itself, simply a formal letter with little practical consequence, was a necessary process step to proceedings that could result in a demotion from Kelly's retired rank of captain and subsequent reduction in retirement pay. Is a low down dirty devil. Let me tell you something. This is isn't this what he also did to James Comey? Okay, isn't this what he also did to James Comey? Now, Kelly asked the federal court in Washington, D.C. to rule that the censure letter, the proceedings about his rank, and any other punishments against him were unlawful and unconstitutional. Now, the First Amendment forbids the government and its officials from punishing disfavored expression or retaliating against protected speech. This is what his lawsuit claims. That prohibition applies with particular force to legislators speaking on matters of public policy. Now, the Pentagon didn't immediately respond to a message seeking comment. The case was assigned to U.S. District Judge Leon, who was nominated to the bench by Republican President George W. Bush. The legal action of a sitting U.S. senator suing the defense secretary is very rare, okay, if not jarring, and the latest effort from members of Congress to push back against what they see as an out-of-control executive branch. The censure stemmed from Kelly's participation in a video in November with 5 other Democratic lawmakers, all veterans of the armed services and intelligence community, in which they called on troops to uphold the Constitution and not to follow the Trump administration's military directives if they were unlawful. Okay, so we already know what the video said. So, Trump is getting hit with these lawsuits, because he's just running amok. But hey, he doesn't care. Clearly, he thinks he can do whatever he wants. Okay, like I told you all. Now, with that all being said, hold on just a second, beloveds. Here it is. This is what I was looking for. Now, here is the actual lawsuit. It's 46 pages. 46 pages. Soul Sister says, this is what this country voted for. Now everyone will pay the price. I agree. Absolutely agree, beloved. Here's the lawsuit right here. And as you can see, Mark Kelly, United States Senator representing the state of Arizona. And then it has Pete Hegseth in his official capacity, Secretary of Defense. Okay, he's actually the Secretary of War. Isn't that what they changed it to? And the U.S. Department of Defense, John Phelan. Okay, that's the Secretary of the Navy and U.S. Department of the Navy. Okay, the Navy Pentagon. Okay, so I'm just going to read like a page out of here. This part right here. The process that the Secretary of Defense has directed for reconsidering Senator Kelly's retirement grade also violates due process because that proceeding even began, or before that proceeding even began, the president publicly accused Senator Kelly of sedition and treason and demanded punishment. The secretary himself has echoed those accusations, announced an investigation, and then issued a letter of censure that not tentatively but conclusively determined that Senator Kelly's speech met the very criteria that the department must consider when reducing retirement grade. Now, the outcome of any subsequent review of Senator Kelly's grade, even assuming it could lawfully proceed, is foreordained. Now, the Constitution does not permit the government to announce the verdict in advance and then subject Senator Kelly or anyone else to a nominal process designed only to fulfill it. Okay, nor does the statute cited by Secretary Hegseth provide any basis to conduct such a proceeding. All right, so there you have it, folks. Let's see what he wants. He's got some evidence in here attached. See, this is what's going to always bring them down. Look, he's got Donald Trump. Look at this. Got Donald Trump's own post in here. See, Trump is always his own undoing. This is what Trump posted on November the 20th of 2025. It says, it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set. President Donald or DJT. Okay. 9 minutes later, President Trump reposted a news article about the video and added, this is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. Lock them up. What an idiot. Here's another one. Seditious behavior, punishable by death. Hang them, George Washington would. This is what your president is right. Okay? He said hang them because George Washington would. That was a dog whistle, just in case y'all missed it. In response to the president's threat, Senator Kelly and his 5 colleagues quickly issued a joint statement. We are veterans and national security professionals who love this country and swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Notice how they didn't say the United States of America. That oath lasts a lifetime, and we intend to keep it. What's most telling is that the president considers it punishable by death for us to restate the law. Our service members should know that we have their backs as they fulfill their oath. Okay, their oath to the Constitution and obligation to follow only lawful orders. It is not only the right thing to do, but also our duty. In addition, Senator Kelly posted his own response on X, saying, my wife, Gabby Giffords, nearly lost her life in an act of political violence. Words have consequences, especially when they come from the President of the United States. What Trump said this morning, that my colleagues and I should be put to death, is dangerous. We can disagree fiercely and say what we think without resorting to stoking violence. Undoubted, a White House social media page posted a statement by President Trump 2 days later in which he reiterated his view that the 6 Congress members are traitors and accused them of sedition at the highest level. And here's his post right here. The traitors that told the military to disobey my orders should be in jail right now, not roaming the fake news networks trying to explain that what they said was okay. It wasn't and never will be. It was sedition at the highest level, and sedition is a major crime. There could be no other interpretation of what they said. Honey, Trump was fuming. Do y'all hear him? 9 minutes later, the president posted again. Now, I want you all to pay attention to how he posts back to back to back and these ridiculous rants and tirades, just like a little child. Okay? Posting 8 minutes later, 10 minutes later, and all of that, going on whole rants. So 9 minutes later, the president posted again and claimed that many great legal scholars agree that the Democrat traitors that told the military to disobey my orders as president have committed a crime of serious proportion. Not of serious proportion. The following day, President Trump posted a flurry of messages and memes shared by other users on Truth Social, including several messages accusing the 6 members of sedition and treason. Among the reposts were a post calling the 6 members domestic terrorists, okay, and other allegations that the 6 members were traitorous sons of bitches and traitorous communists who should be impeached and prosecuted. Sounds like what he needs to have done, okay, being impeached and prosecuted. Shortly after the president's post, Senator Kelly and other Congress members received so many threatening messages that law enforcement agencies provided them, their families, and their staff with special security. Now, I want you to pay attention to that, because Trump and the right are always trying to pretend and projecting and lying and saying that the right, they're saying things and stoking and provoking political violence. But that's exactly what they're doing. It is their fault that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Things that they said, which were very extreme and hateful and divisive, in my opinion. Okay, now, they want to blame it on the left, but everybody should know the truth. Okay, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear. Now, with that all being said, they had to get security for not just them and their families, but their staffs as well. Senator Kelly, can you imagine how much taxpayer money that cost or called for? Senator Kelly received numerous death threats. Senator Kelly explained, saying, what the president is doing is sending a very chilling message across our entire nation, not only in the military, but the civilian workforce. Who's going to speak up and say anything if they see something that's unlawful or see something waste, fraud, and abuse? Why would anyone speak out if they go and prosecute a U.S. senator? Right. If they'll prosecute a U.S. senator, what would anybody else do? Well, why would anyone else say anything? Just a regular, everyday citizen who may have some information or whatever. It's an intimidation tactic and also retaliatory. So on November the 24th, the official X page of the Department of Defense published a post announcing that it assumed responsibility for investigating and disciplining Senator Kelly for his statements. And here's what they said. The Department of War has received serious allegations of misconduct against Captain Mark Kelly. Okay, so in accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, 10 USC Statute 688 and other applicable regulations, a thorough review of these allegations has been initiated to determine further actions, which may include recall to active duty for court-martial proceedings or administrative measures. Secretary Hegseth reposted the statement on his X page, calling the Congress members the seditious six. That was what he called them, honey. Okay, and stating that Mark Kelly, retired Navy commander, is still subject to UCMJ. The department is reviewing his statements and actions. The following day, Secretary Hegseth posted that Captain Kelly's sedition video intentionally undercut good order and discipline and referred to when or if Senator Kelly is recalled to active duty. The Department of Defense then posted a scan of a memorandum by Secretary Hegseth directed to the Secretary of the Navy with a subject line, potentially unlawful conduct by Captain Mark E. Kelly, U.S. Navy, retired. The memo stated in its entirety said, the Department of War recently received information regarding potentially unlawful comments made by Captain retired Mark E. Kelly in a public video on or about November the 18th of 2025. I'm referring this and any other related matters for your review, consideration, and disposition, okay, as you deem appropriate. Please provide me a brief on the outcome of your review by no later than December the 10th of 2025. Really trying to take this man down. Despite the deadline of December the 10th, it came and went, and Senator Kelly heard nothing. On December the 11th, there were news reports that the Secretary of the Navy had discovered or had delivered his report regarding Senator Kelly to Hegseth. On December 15th, Senator Kelly's counsel sent by email a letter addressed to Secretary Phelan. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So basically they sent a letter recounting public reporting that Secretary Phelan had submitted his brief to the Department of Defense's Office of General Counsel of Legal Review and Input. The letter made clear that there is no legitimate basis for any type of proceeding against Senator Kelly, and any such effort should be or would be unconstitutional and an extraordinary abuse of power. The letter warned that if the executive branch were to move forward in any forum, including a disciplinary or administrative forum, counsel would take all appropriate legal action on Senator Kelly's behalf to halt the administration's unprecedented and dangerous overreach. Do y'all hear that? Do y'all hear that? Sounds like a whole L for Trump. Still at it. So ridiculous, okay? Mr. Elevation said, wow, they're reaching. Yes, of course they are, beloved. Of course they are. Byron B said, prophecy being fulfilled. Yep, I have to agree. Now, with that all being said, let's continue. Let's continue. So where am I going? Hold on, beloveds. Oh, forgot. He's being sued. Let's get into it. I find this all so salacious and clearly nefarious. Let's talk about it. Former Trump employee says her bosses made her wear a child-sized uniform. Y'all hear this? Not a child-sized uniform. Now, one former employee of President Donald Trump's golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, who voted for him in 2024, by the way. I think this lady voted for him about 3 times. She's accused, twice, not 3 times. She's accusing the president's managerial staff of inappropriate and predatory behavior toward female workers. All very interesting. Now, listen, it says it was reported Monday that Maria Hadley, who was on the events team and banquet staff at the Trump National Golf Club, is accusing both the president, Donald J. Trump, and his son, Eric, of fostering. I think in the picture I put Donald J. Trump. Oops, my bad. Okay, but it's Eric Trump. Okay, of fostering a culture of sexual harassment at the Bedminster Club. All right. Now, this is according to Hadley. Male staffers allegedly made constant inappropriate comments about female co-workers and guests, and also retaliated against anyone who dared to speak out. Are y'all listening to the bullshit? It's giving Epstein files. It's giving Epstein energy. It's giving, is this why Trump was so desperately trying to distract us and still is? Hadley said in a complaint filed in New Jersey court on Monday that she was forced to wear a tight shirt and skirt that were several sizes too small. I wonder why they had on hand child-sized uniforms. But let me continue. Wouldn't want to speculate. Now, when she told club manager Patricio Neira, also named as a defendant alongside Donald and Eric Trump, that he had given her a child-sized uniform, he allegedly told her, if they don't fit, you don't work. She called it humiliating to have to work in revealing clothing and had to ask a coworker to switch uniforms with her. Now, the former Bedminster employee also alleged that male staffers at the club sometimes referred to teenage guests as sexy. And one bartender reportedly made sexual comments about 12-year-old guests with braces, a 12-year-old that had braces. Yeah, this is definitely giving Epstein files. Hadley also said that, see how stuff's coming out? See how it's all coming out? See, it's the thing. She can sit up here and try to gaslight, deflect, and stall, and all kinds of tactics he can use. Okay, stonewalling. None of it's going to work. It looks like things are coming out one way or another. Well, let me continue. I find it also interesting. Now, Hadley also said that male higher-ups at Bedminster repeatedly tried to ply underage workers with alcohol, and that a bartender routinely served alcohol to minors, saying, I did not want the president that I believe in and voted for each time that he ran to be shown in a bad light or lose face. I did what I thought was right. This is what Hadley said in a text message to Eric Trump, okay? Which he did not answer. I am absolutely incensed. Now, Hadley's lawsuit comes less than a month after another separate complaint filed in New Jersey about subpar conditions and unprofessional behavior at Trump's Bedminster Club. Like Hadley, former clubhouse manager Justine Sachs accused both Donald and Eric Trump of creating an unsafe environment for female employees. She also said the kitchen soft-serve ice cream machine was infested with maggots and mold. Ooh, that is so nasty. Do y'all hear that? Not maggots and molds. Yikes. So anyway, what do you all have to say about this? I find it all interesting. Hold on, because I do have those text messages. Okay, I do believe that I have those text messages. Let me just make sure. This is all a hot mess. Likes up, everyone, please. A like and share. Yeah, here are some of the messages right here. Okay, now listen to this. So Hadley said it was humiliating being forced to work in inappropriate revealing clothing until another female employee secretly swapped uniforms with her. Okay, this is another report. Hadley also recounted multiple instances in which management referred to teenage guests as sexy, as well as repeated occasions where Neira mocked a male employee for being gay. Okay, and grabbed his subordinate by his head and held it down near his own cucumber. How the nerve, how disrespectful. She also alleged that the clubhouse bartender served alcohol to minors and made sexual comments to a 12-year-old guest with braces. Now, hold on, I'm trying to figure out what these text messages mean. Management turned against Hadley in June. She alleged this after she reported the bartender for repeatedly serving female staffers alcohol without their consent, which is a fireable offense that she was told would remain anonymous. But instead, the bartender allegedly learned within hours that Hadley was the one who had in fact reported him, after which she says male supervisors began retaliating against her. Okay, in one instance cited in the lawsuit, Hadley said Trump once visited the clubhouse and told employees they would each receive a $1,000 bonus, specifically looking at her when he made the announcement. The bonuses were ultimately distributed to every employee except Hadley. That was his way of punishing her, and she voted for herself. For his dumb self. President Trump boasted about how impeccable their service was. President Trump directed that management provide each employee with a $1,000 bonus, specifically looking at plaintiff when he gave his instruction, despite same every other employee other than plaintiff was giving. Every other employee, despite the plaintiff, was given $1,000. Now, her hours were later cut in half. Male co-workers refused to speak to her or acknowledge her. And when she attempted to raise concerns, she said human resources repeatedly looked the other way. Now, the situation deteriorated to the point that Hadley said she was hospitalized twice and ultimately resigned. So defendants targeted Ms. Hadley because she refused to tolerate pervasive gender discrimination, sexual harassment, and serious legal and safety violations that put employees and customers at risk. This is what Hadley's attorney, Jennifer C. Iodisi, said in a statement to the Daily Beast. Okay, now they reached out to Trump's organization and Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster and NERA for comment. The White House declined and referred them to the Trump organization. The lawsuit adds to a growing list of sexual harassment allegations tied to Trump's Bedminster property. Do you all hear this? Do you all hear this? I find this all so interesting. Byron said his virgin ears. Okay, y'all remember you heard it here first. Okay, this is all not good. Okay, more lawsuits, sexual harassment, and then the fact that Trump is still doing his old BS allegedly. Okay, the lady's talking about how he came and gave and told them to pay everybody $1,000 except her. So he doesn't want people to complain about sexual harassment. I find that very interesting, don't you? Hold on, beloveds. All right, now with that all been said, let's continue. Just making a change real quick, beloveds. Okay, here we go. Now, this is all very interesting. Like I said, oh, hold on. I didn't show you all the text messages. Hold on, I knew I forgot something. Hold on. Scroll back. Okay, here they go. Not really sure in what context, because it's not all of the messages, of course, but I'm not really sure exactly what they mean. Okay, so vodka in a Shirley Temple. What? OMG, what in the world? And then the response is, yes, he always makes me a dirty Shirley if I walk away and not watch him make it. I wonder, this is probably someone underage, I'm guessing. Great, can't wait for the 5-year-old to get that. What? Get some rest. I will come to you later. I guess that's supposed to mean come to you later, but it says calm. But can't wait for the 5-year-old to get that. Do y'all see this? Now, I know darn well they weren't giving alcohol to a 5-year-old. Is that what they were doing? Because they did say they were giving it to minors, but 5. I'm like, Raj, I didn't want vodka in this. And he's like, it will give you energy. So that's where they were talking about giving alcohol to people who didn't want it. Okay? All nefarious. When he makes me Shirley Temples, I literally have to tell him with Sprite. And if I walk away and come back for it, there's vodka always in it. It's all nefarious. Y'all hear that? Reggie says Drew Barrymore was drinking at a young age. Yes, she was. I do remember seeing an interview. I think she started when she was 11. She was like 11 years old. That's what I was thinking. When I saw that, I was like, an 11-year-old drinking? And I think she was an alcoholic by the time she was like 13. Also very sad. Now, let's go to where they say the GOP was booed. They got booed in Arizona, you all. And I'm sure we all know why.
That happened at the Arizona Capitol. Republican lawmakers trying to hold a press conference in support of ICE and what they're doing to the communities. The state of Arizona has about 2.3 million Latinos, making up 1/3 of the population of Arizona. And the community is stepping up and saying, we are not in support of ICE. And this is what it's going to take. It's going to take us doing things like this. Peaceful protests that we're disrupting, and we're letting them know what is going on. Yes, I know a lot of you are saying we should do this, we should do that. With my platform and with my space, I will always advocate for us to protest peacefully, for us to know our rights, for us to get educated, and also learn how to fight within this system, fight within these rules, and elect individuals to break these rules and reform these rules and give us protection and safety. But in order for us to get there, we need to start figuring out how to mobilize and how to organize, change this system. And I'm wearing this shirt, Puro Pinche Protest. You can follow them on social.
Now, with that all being said, Chuck Schumer, now remember, Trump said that if the Supreme Court doesn't go along with this little scheme, that we're screwed. Okay, so Chuck Schumer calls on the Supreme Court to strike down Trump's illegal tariffs. Okay, so let's get into it. Trump's just creating one disaster after another. Ha! Reggie said Latinos for Trump. Exactly.
Finally, on tariffs. As soon as this week, the U.S. Supreme Court may rule on whether or not Donald Trump's chaotic tariff policy is constitutional. I've long been very clear that the Supreme Court should strike Donald Trump's tariffs down. The president's tariffs are an unlawful usurping of Congress's authority over trade. And I've seen firsthand throughout New York. The president's tariffs are an unlawful usurping of Congress's authority over trade. And I've seen firsthand in New York how they've raised prices for families and shut down so many small businesses. Congress may not have a say on whether or how the Supreme Court will rule, but we absolutely have a say on future legislation on the president's tariff authority. The Senate has already voted 4 times on a bipartisan basis to reject Trump's illegal trade war. If the Supreme Court strikes down all or some of Donald Trump's tariffs, we know he'll come to Congress and demand another blank check. Republicans must be ready to buck up and tell him no. Senate Democrats will not support any legislation that hands the president a free pass to slap tariffs on whoever he likes. The consequences for our economy be damned in his eyes. No blank checks for an endless trade war. No blank checks for Donald Trump to issue tariffs whenever he likes, against whomever he likes, regardless of the consequences, particularly the American people, as it raises and raises and raises their cost of living.
Okay, y'all heard that. Listen, this is just going from bad to worse. Okay, every day it's getting worse. Listen to this. Minnesota sues DHS, which is Department of Homeland Security, after fatal ICE shooting. We're going to get to that, but also this just came out 45 minutes ago. We got to talk about this. DOJ officials quit after division. Hold on, beloveds. Yeah, it says DOJ officials quit after division refused to probe Minnesota ICE shooting. Let's get into it. This is all so nefarious. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Thank you in advance. Hold on. Okay, here we go.
Week after a Minneapolis woman was shot and killed by an ICE agent, Minnesota and the Twin Cities are suing the Department of Homeland Security to end the immigration enforcement effort there. Right now, there are thousands of federal agents in the state. Fox News correspondent Connor Hansen has the details.
This is, in essence, a federal invasion of the Twin Cities and Minnesota, and it must stop.
As protests and clashes with federal agents continue in Minneapolis, state and local leaders say the immigration raids need to stop. A new lawsuit claims DHS is violating the rights of Minnesota and the Twin Cities and targeting them for political reasons. It asks a judge to halt or limit the immigration enforcement. Less than a week after a woman was shot and killed by an ICE agent, hundreds more federal agents could be joining the operation in Minnesota.
You've seen the videos. At times, there are as many as 50 agents arresting one person. The scale is wildly disproportionate and has nothing to do with keeping people safe.
ICE and Border Patrol say the constant protests they're facing mean they need more officers to help protect themselves.
I don't see how that's an overreach. What we're doing is we're doing our lawful law enforcement mission that Congress has on the books.
Minnesota's leaders say ICE's mission in the name of public safety is having the opposite effect. But Border Patrol Chief Greg Bavino blames local officials for the added tension.
They're not trying to tamp down the violence or anything else. They're actually fomenting violence and ramping the violence up. They're supporting these people.
DHS says it has made more than 2,000 arrests in Minnesota since December, its largest ever immigration enforcement operation. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
The man shot by Border Patrol agents in Portland is now facing federal charges. Luis Nino Mancada and Yorlinis Betspeth Zambrano Contreras were shot last Thursday in what DHS is calling a targeted stop. Federal officials claim the two were suspected members of a violent Venezuelan gang who both entered the U.S. illegally. Federal prosecutors allege Nino Mancada used his car to try to escape. They claim he hit their cars and placed agents in harm's way. The DOJ charged him with aggravated assault of a federal officer. Nino Mancada was in court today, and our sister station reports that a judge ordered he be held in custody ahead of another hearing on Wednesday. As for the woman involved, she's reportedly being held at the ICE Processing Center in Tacoma.
All right, so you all heard that. Those were the two people who got shot, and we hadn't gotten any word on their condition thus far. But it looks like they're obviously okay, I guess. Because you know how they be out here lying. I mean, I would imagine they're okay if they're sitting in jail and not the hospital. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about this because the DOJ officials quit after division refused to probe Minnesota ICE shooting.
This now is Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. And so thanks so much for being here. Let's jump off exactly where Nnamdi left off. The criminal section of the DOJ's Civil Rights Division specializes in investigating potential or alleged abuse or improper use of force by law enforcement. So what does it tell you that this division isn't even involved in probing the shooting of Renee Good?
It tells me that they're not going to do an investigation, a criminal investigation of the ICE agents' actions. And I think it's important for people to know that we have career prosecutors in DOJ. We have career FBI agents. And so if they are indeed resigning, this is an indication to me that they feel that this is political and not about what actually happened with Renee Good.
We know the FBI cut off state and local investigators from being part of a joint investigation. You've asked the public for any eyewitness accounts and videos of the shooting as you try to continue forward with a parallel or a separate investigation. What is the current status of your investigation?
Well, we had worked out an agreement with the FBI, which we've done in the past, where the BCA, it's the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which is our state probably equivalent of FBI, was going to be part of a joint investigation. And that's the way it usually works here. There's a very good working relationship between the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, our office, the BCA. And so we had that joint investigation worked out, and the BCA started, and then they were abruptly told that they were not to be part of this. The issue it creates is this. If the BCA cannot be part, or at least access to, so we're asking for one of three things. It's either that the BCA be allowed to do a joint investigation, like a parallel investigation, that they are allowed to be kind of along for the ride to see what the FBI is doing, or at minimum, that the BCA have access to the entire investigation that the FBI is doing. That way, the BCA would hand over that investigation to us at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office so that we could consider whether charges here are appropriate or not. And the problem is, if the BCA does not have access to any of that, we will not have access to any of the evidence that they see, such as the car, the ballistics, that sort of thing. And there will never be an opportunity for the public to understand and for us to be transparent about what actually happened here.
Yeah, so even if you have all this video evidence that the public might be sending in from eyewitness accounts and what they were able to shoot on their cell phones, for example, you're saying that without that additional evidence that the FBI might be withholding or holding on to as just their investigation is underway, that you wouldn't be able to determine whether there would be charges warranted?
I'm not saying that. And I also am not being critical at all of the FBI here. I think the FBI probably wants to be cooperative. They're professional. Like I said, we have a good relationship. But if they're not allowed to do an investigation for political reasons, or they're not allowed to share it with us, we simply won't have the results of whatever it is that they've been doing. That saying that is not to say that we will not have enough information to make a decision about whether charges are appropriate. Every day we get cases submitted to us that aren't ideal for various reasons. And our job is to look at the evidence that we do have and to decide whether we have enough evidence to charge or not. And most importantly there, our job is also to be as transparent as we can with our community and frankly, on this case, nationally, as to what happened here, what decision might be made, and what supports that decision. What is the reasoning behind it?
Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, so it looks like it's all going downhill. It looks like it's all going downhill as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what do you all think? Now, with that all being said, let's go to what both parties had to say in response to the Idaho governor, okay, to his state address. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Here we go.
From Republicans and Democrats, which is where we bring in Joe Paris. Joe, you stuck GOP party. Kind of, what's the reaction overall when it comes to this?
I think it's a big thank you for your input. We'll see what we want to do with it. And I asked House Speaker Mike Moyle, Republican from Star, about the comment from Governor Little that he made today, as well as he made last week, that cuts to Medicaid expansion are not part of the governor's proposal.
He had made some headlines on Friday for saying cuts to Medicaid expansion weren't on his agenda. In terms of the big cuts agenda, in terms of Medicaid, where do you see it?
Everybody forgets that the one that sets the agenda, the governor gives the state in his budget, and we listen. And then the ones that set it all is the legislative branch. So it'll be up to them to decide what happens. So we'll see. Well, there's discussion. We got to find some solutions. We've got to figure out what to do on Medicaid, though, because Medicaid expansion is going to break the states, taking revenue away from schools and every other service we provide. We've got to figure out how to slow that growth.
So it's certainly not a new topic at the State House, cuts to Medicaid or potential cuts to Medicaid and expansion. And lawmakers took a few successful runs at that last session, specifically on ways to change the funding mechanism, as well as the gross amounts of money that goes to Medicaid and expansion. And supporters of those measures have said and continue to say that it is needed to protect the budget. Critics worry the cuts will end up costing Idaho more in the long run. Most importantly, the critics say that there will be a cost to the health of Idahoans.
When we ended the session last year, we left $430 million on the bottom line because we'd cut $450 million in taxes. We wanted to make sure we had a cushion. And we'd be fine today, except for one thing, the big, beautiful bill. The big, beautiful bill is 39, components of tax relief. And so we've got to figure out how to balance that. So I think there's a way to do all of it, because you're going to get tax relief when we conform to the big, beautiful bill. But we also got to be a little careful that we have the revenue necessary to take care of schools and everything else. And that's one of my concerns with the Medicaid. We got a problem there.
So, talking to the House Speaker about what you just heard about there, the intrigue of what the governor had basically promised the president, the state of Idaho was going to conform with the IRS tax code on the state level, which means there will be more tax relief for Idahoans. But that also means there will be less revenue coming into the state of Idaho. So some believe that an easy place to cut would be the Medicaid budget, one of the largest budget items here in the state of Idaho. So there's a lot of intrigue coming into the session. And again, Idaho has confirmed that it sounds like the tax code, for the most part, they're going to go along with. More tax breaks, though, coming soon. I guess you could say it'll be in the next tax year,
Right.
but a lot to discuss. There will probably be some very specific provisions of the big, beautiful bill tax code that Idaho doesn't go along with, which is not abnormal from the usual years.
Yeah. Okay, Joe, we're going to come back to you. We're getting some viewer comments coming in about this, but let's get out to Aspen Shumpert. She has been covering kind of the Democratic side of thing. Aspen, what is top of mind for Democrats right now?
Yeah, hi, Hunter. It's fair to say budget is top of mind for Democratic leaders right now. They're calling the multi-million-dollar deficit a self-inflicted crisis, and they're hoping to see some solutions this legislative session to make that right. Specifically today, after hearing Governor Brad Little's State of the State address, they felt he really glossed over the deficits that's happening right now and feel like Idahoans deserve to know what's going to be coming next with that. Democrats specifically called out the GOP party, saying they need to make it right and own some of their policy mistakes from last year that is putting the budget where it's at right now. The Democrats are proposing a three-part solution, really, which includes taking 1/3 of the state's $1.4 billion rainy day fund. They could do that. They could eliminate the parental choice tax credit, which is $50 million. And then additionally, they could look at some of those tax bills from the previous legislative session and maybe put some language in place to make sure that those only take effect when the state can afford it.
That pretty much solves our budget problem right away. So we have some really obvious solutions staring us in the face. We just have some leaders who refuse to look at those solutions. But, maybe if the public engages more on this, they can say, well, wait, why are we, defunding nursing homes? Why are we cutting nursing care for people with disabilities? Why are we doing all this when we have these really obvious things we could do to restore revenue to the system so we could make ends meet?
Now, before the legislative session kicked off today, Idaho's DOGE committee said they will be recommending repealing Medicaid expansion, which, reminder, passed and was supported by 61% of voters back in 2018. Now, Democrats say they will be fighting to keep Medicaid expansion in place. And if it was to be repealed, it would be a staggering mistake that will affect 90,000 Idahoans having access to affordable health care. Senate Minority Leader Melissa Wintrow says Medicaid expansion has only become more favorable since 2018, and we need to protect it.
Biggest priority is affordability for families, and healthcare is at the top of that, because if you're not healthy, you can't work and you can't provide for your family. Affordable child care is essential to make sure that families can work.
Now, beyond budget problems, as well as making sure Medicaid expansion stays in place, Democrats say they also plan to have some priorities that line out fully funding public schools, as well as preserving Idaho's public lands. But they hope to not be on just the defense this year. They also want to introduce some bills addressing affordable housing, affordable childcare. So I know that's also on their horizon, Hunter.
Yeah, always a reminder that this is the time of year where things are just proposed. It's up to the lawmakers to make things happen. So we'll see how that plays out in session. Aspen, thank you.
All right. All right. So with that all being said, now let's talk about the Idaho AG, who's defending the state ban on transgender athletes' participation in women's sports. What I want to say about that report that we just listened to, the Democrats are trying to make sure that people are still able to have their health care, and also some of the Republicans have voted with them. But at the end of the day, the president of the United States doesn't care if his citizens have health care or not. Okay, he doesn't give a darn at the end of the day, but he's got all this money for other BS, okay, and also trying to make money and secure his own bag, okay, even having a whole grift, okay, on a website where you can go and donate, sending out emails to get people to donate $2,500. Just imagine how much money that'll total up to Okay, after thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of people donate. Okay, all of his MAGA minions specifically. Now, right, while everybody else is in peril. And he just keeps on talking about these tariffs are going to be good and all of this. What he's not telling you and what they're not reporting in the mainstream media is that supposedly many countries have stopped buying things, purchasing things from the United States. Okay, now with that all being said, let's go to this report about the AG. They're talking about Medicaid. And then here's the thing, they know exactly what they're doing. Because remember, they used the excuse for the Minnesota fraud that they kept talking about. They used that to freeze childcare. Okay, so like they said, if people don't have childcare, how are they going to go to work? And childcare is very expensive these days too. So there's not going to be funding for childcare facilities and whatnot. What are people supposed to do? Just lose their jobs? Okay, it's going to be even more homeless people in the streets if this continues the way it's going. All right, so but anyway, let's continue. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. DJ Big Six said on both sides. Exactly. I mean, we see there and watch the Democrats just, let Trump do so many things without saying a single word in many of the cases.
And we led the nation in preventing men from competing in women's sports.
The governor touching on an issue in his State of the State address that is up for an argument tomorrow at the country's highest court. Little versus Hecox is on the docket. The legal battle goes back 6 years when Governor Little signed the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. The law requires athletic teams at public schools, colleges, and universities to be designated based on biological sex as male, female, or co-ed, and explicitly states that teams designed or designated for women or girls shall not be open to the male sex. Soon after Little signed that act into law, Lindsay Hecox, a transgender woman, sued the state because it prevented her from competing on BSU's women's track and field team. Then, this past fall, after years of litigation, Hecox filed a notice attempting to dismiss her lawsuit. She cited significant personal and family challenges, including negative publicity from this case and her decision to no longer pursue collegiate sports. But a U.S. District Court judge struck that down, saying it would be unfair to the public's interest to abandon the lawsuit now. Cut to tomorrow, when the U.S. Supreme Court will hear the case. Ahead of court arguments, Idaho's Attorney General Raul Labrador spoke at a press conference hosted by other Republican attorney generals.
I became Attorney General 3 years ago, and I decided to defend this law all the way to the Supreme Court. I petitioned the Supreme Court to hear our case, and I argued very strongly and effectively that this appeal should be heard. This athlete just never decided to dismiss the case until the petition for cert was granted by the U.S. Supreme Court. So when they knew that they were in the Ninth Circuit, that they would win, they were fine with having this case heard. When they knew that they were going to go before the Supreme Court, they decided to try to dismiss this case. I think that's fundamentally unfair.
In addition to Little versus Hecox, the court will also hear a similar lawsuit. That one is out of West Virginia, and that happens tomorrow. We will have a regular news at 5 tomorrow night, and we will bring you the latest on those arguments.
Here's the thing. At the end of the day, listen, I have told you all repeatedly that I do not agree. Okay, I do not agree with biological men in women's sports. Okay, I just don't agree with that at the end of the day. And there was a video. Hold on, beloveds. Hold on, I'm looking for this clip to try to reiterate my points. Oh my God, did I not share this? I could have sworn. Hold on, beloveds. Let me see here. So there was a video of this man just throwing such a tantrum. This person was throwing such a tantrum. Dang it, I didn't share it. I wish I had. Anyway, was throwing such a tantrum because the person claimed that they were misgendered. And they got so mad that they kicked over stuff in the store, were yelling and shouting, almost to the point of violence. Okay, almost to the point of violence. And I remember thinking, this is part of the reason why biological men should not be allowed to participate in women's sports. The amount of testosterone, okay, the strength, the bone structure, and all of that, okay, and the anger, the strength when you're enraged. It's all just too much. Okay, it's all just too much. I wish I had that video to show you all. I thought it was very interesting how angry they got, the rage of it all. It's the rage of it all for me. I'm going to show you all a video later. Don't worry. When I come back, I'm going to show you all some stuff that needs to be discussed. Okay, now let's talk about it because they have a Republican bill that was introduced to make Greenland the 51st state. I guess Trump has said, you know what? He don't care what anybody says. He's going to get Greenland, okay, to become one with the United States come hell or high water. Because now they've introduced the whole bill. Let's get into it.
Introduced to make Greenland the 51st state. A GOP lawmaker has introduced legislation that would authorize President Trump to pursue the acquisition of Greenland, potentially setting the territory on a path to becoming the 51st U.S. state. Representative Randy Fine from Florida introduced the bill on Monday, giving the president authority to take such steps as may be necessary to acquire the Arctic island, which is currently a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. The proposal comes amid rising tensions between Washington, Copenhagen, and Greenland, as Trump and members of his administration have renewed calls for U.S. control of the territory. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has warned that an American takeover of Greenland would mark the end of NATO. Greenland's Prime Minister Hans Fredrik Nielsen and parliamentary party leaders said the island's future must be decided by its people, emphasizing their wish that the United States' contempt for our country ends. Greenland has drawn U.S. interest due to its strategic location in the Arctic, its existing U.S. military presence, and its reserves of rare earth minerals, oil, and natural gas.
We need Greenland for national security. Not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it.
So could Greenland actually become a state? Under the U.S. Constitution, Congress has the authority to admit new states, a process that would require legislation, approval by residents of the territory, and final congressional and presidential approval.
This is also nonsensical. And just a few months ago, he was talking about having Canada as the 51st state. Now he wants Greenland. Okay, he just thinks he's going to take over the whole world. Honey, who does he think he is? God? No, let's talk about it. So Greenland 51st state bill alarms European experts, significant concerns. Now, a Republican congressman has introduced a bill that would pave the way to the U.S. annexing Greenland and absorbing the strategic Arctic territory. Now, the move has sparked concern among international law experts who have long maintained the U.S. cannot legally take the mostly ice-covered island without the consent of Greenlanders and the Danes. The Trump administration's unrelenting lust for Greenland, they say. I want you all to pay attention to the words they use. Unrelenting lust sounds like something from a Harlequin romance novel, but let me continue. And refusal to rule out using military action against a fellow NATO member to take the sparsely populated mineral-rich expanse by force has deeply shaken NATO. So U.S. officials have said Washington needs control of Greenland to safeguard its national security and shore up NATO defenses. But onlookers also say sharp U.S. interest in the island, which is semi-autonomous part of Denmark, is also about expanding Washington's sphere of influence in the Western Hemisphere and securing vital resources. So what does all this mean? Well, I'm so glad you asked. The Office of Representative Randy Fine of Florida said Monday that this bill, or his bill, would authorize President Donald Trump to take whatever steps necessary to annex or acquire Greenland, essentially making Greenland the U.S.'s 51st state. The proposed legislation also requires Congress to see a full report on how U.S. federal law must change to admit Greenland as an American state. So they reached out to the Danish government for comment, Annexation is illegal under international law, mind you, okay? The U.S. cannot legally take over Greenland without the permission of those who live there and Denmark. Now, the U.S. Constitution, however, does not set out conditions for acquiring territories, and Congress could theoretically vote to approve annexation. The bill raises significant concerns from the perspective of international law, according to Aurel Sari, a professor of public international law at the University of Exeter, England. Or in England. So they say, should the United States employ military force in an attempt to gain control and annex Greenland, this would not only be a serious violation of the prohibition to use force in international relations, but also a breach of the prohibition to annex foreign territory, according to Sari. Now, the prohibition of forcible annexation is a fundamental rule of international law, and its violation a very serious matter. Under the bill, the Trump administration would negotiate with Denmark to annex or otherwise acquire Greenland. Trump has indicated a willingness to make a deal for Greenland, but has also said, one way or the other, we're going to have Greenland. Okay, Danish officials have hit back with increasing force at such statements, saying the use of military force would spell the end of NATO and that the territory is not for sale. Many Greenlanders are in favor of Greenland eventually separating from Denmark, but opinion polls show the vast majority of Greenlanders do not want the island to become a part of the U.S. They're saying our country isn't something you can deny or take over because you want to. This is what Greenlandic Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen said earlier this month. If passed, the bill would become known as the Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act. Both Democrats and Republicans have balked at the possibility of the U.S. launching a forcible takeover of Greenland, meaning the bill would have a tough time making it through Congress. They say from an international law perspective, this kind of bill, if enacted by Congress, would constitute a clear breach of Denmark's sovereignty and territorial integrity. This is what Mark Milanovic, professor of public international law at the University of Reading in England, said, saying that if the U.S. then proceeds to forcibly take control over Greenland, it would be committing aggression against another state in violation of the UN Charter. This is what Milanovic said. Now, the United States or the United Nations Charter, Article 2.4 lays out that changes to which country controls territory should not happen by using the military or alluding to its possible use. A separate bill introduced by Democratic Representative Jimmy Gomez of California seeks to block federal funds from being used to pursue U.S. control of Greenland and the U.S. military presence there. And this was reported by Axios on Monday. Now, they say Greenland is not a distant outpost that we could afford to ignore. It is a vital national asset or security asset. Okay, this is what Fine said, saying that whoever controls Greenland controls key Arctic shipping lanes and security architecture protecting the United States. So that's why Trump said we need it for our national security. Please pay attention. Okay, even though he's full of BS. So with that all being said, he says America cannot leave that future in the hands of regimes that despise our values and seek to undermine our security. Now, attention has increasingly turned to the Arctic, with major global players attempting to muscle in on the region as climate change carves out new trade routes and exposes previously inaccessible resources. China has declared itself a near Arctic state, and Russia, the dominant Arctic power, has been heavily investing in its footprint in the region. But there is no evidence to suggest Russia or China would take control of Greenland, nor of Trump's previous claim that the territory is covered with Russian and Chinese ships. See, Trump just says anything, just makes things up as he goes. And the only fools who believe every word that comes from his lying lips are his MAGA minions. Okay. And that's because they don't know any better. They're really just not that smart. Okay. My bill will protect our homeland, secure our economic future, and ensure that America, not Russia or China, sets the rules in the Arctic, Fine says. He's really kissing Trump's butt. Please pay attention. All right, that's what he's doing. It would be terrible for Russia and China to gain more of a foothold in Greenland. This is what retired U.S. Air Force General Glenn Van Herk previously said to a publication. Van Herk served as the commander of the U.S. Northern Command and the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. Okay, the Joint American and Canadian Command oversees both nations' Arctic operations. Now, he added that I don't think we're on the verge of that, but we certainly don't want that to happen, he says. So they say a bipartisan group of lawmakers is expected to travel to Denmark later this week to meet Danish and Greenlandic officials. Well, I guess we'll see how this turns out, because Trump is saying basically he's going to get Greenland, okay, whether y'all like it or not. Okay, he'll be damned. He doesn't care who gets upset. Mr. Mystical Black Realm says Trump can't even secure buyers from stolen snake oil. Exxon was biggest lost at a public embarrassment. Okay, yeah, the deal fell through. They rejected Trump. They dissed him. Quite frankly, he couldn't talk them into it. They just felt like it was just, too much of a risk. Okay, Reggie said that's going to be an intense meeting. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so with that all being said, listen. We're almost out of here, but let's talk about these paid social media influencers. Okay, how MAGA influencers are getting paid by foreign countries and Trump-aligned groups. Now, if you all remember, I told you all that they have whole accounts and they have budgets for these things to pay social media influencers. That's why you have some of these Black folk on here who don't look like me, who look like Officer Tatum. Okay, I mean, they're Black, but they're not really Black. They're Black people, or with I like to call them Black looking people, because they look like us, but they don't act like us. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about. People like Byron Donalds, Herschel Walker, people like that. Okay, now with that all being said, these people, they have people just like those people that I just named. They have people just like them online. And by that, I mean people that have the same foolish talking points as them, the same rhetoric, okay? The raccoon rhetoric, okay? They have people that look like me, or almost look like me, who are out here spewing this foolishness, and they're getting paid to do so. So that's why when you see these people that look like us saying all this crazy stuff, clearly raccooning, sometimes they're getting paid. Okay, this is why sometimes they're saying these things and trying to, spew division. And they're also trying to, fearmonger in some cases, or just been very divisive and talking against their own people who look like them, just like Candace Owens, okay, would do, because they're getting paid for it. That's right. Deronda said shuckers and jivers. Okay, Byron said Oreo queen. Pretty much. Pretty much. This is what they do. Reggie said, Brother Malcolm warned us about these people. He certainly did. Okay, he certainly did. And a lot of times they get celebrities and athletes and other famous people, in our community to come out and speak to us, to try to influence and encourage us. That's why we need not listen to celebrities, okay, like Nicki Minaj going to meet with Charlie Kirk's wife and then going and becoming a whole MAGA member. This is why we should not be listening to people like that. These celebrities, make up our own minds. Don't listen to them. But some people worship these celebrities, and they'll listen to anything and everything that they say and then follow suit foolishly.
By surprise, the Wall Street Journal just revealed that some of the biggest MAGA influencers you see online every single day are not only being paid by groups in the United States, but they're also being paid by foreign countries to post content. For example, last summer, Donald Trump's 28-year-old former campaign aide, Alex Brusewitz, had some advice for him: reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. He posted this to his more than 640,000 followers on Twitter. But what he left out of the post was the fact that he was just given $300,000 by some of the biggest players in the space. And of course, these Gen Z MAGA people are not employed by any news agency, so they don't have any rules or ethics. They can take as much money as they want with little rules to regulate it. Israel made plans over the last year to spend $900,000 on an influence campaign in the United States by these MAGA lunatics. this. So is Qatar. In November, it sponsored trips for several pro-Trump social media personalities, promising interactions with members of Congress who were there and VIP Formula One tickets, which go up to $10,000 apiece. And it gets even worse. Those known to have a good relationship with Trump's assistant, Natalie Harp, and other White House officials get thousands of dollars more per deal than others do. These MAGA influencers are for sale. Let me tell you, as somebody who does this every single day, I've heard rumors about this stuff, of them getting this much money. I never realized how bad it was. They are getting paid to promote foreign countries in the United States. This is outrageous. Well, surprise, surprise.
Okay. And I find that all interesting. And guess what? Guess what? There's likely nothing going to be done about it. Okay. Now let's talk about this next story because this is so egregious. This is so sad. Okay, so there was what they're calling a mass shooting where 6 people were killed, including a 7-year-old girl. Now this story is horrific because Sheriff Eddie Scott held a press conference basically talking about what happened. And this man just went on this rampage, shooting up his whole family. Okay, let's get into it. Gonna go to this news report. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. And where do you hear why he did all of this? Anita Harrell says Nicki Minaj said she was doing that so Trump will not deport her. She's not slick. Talking about Trump was handsome. Yeah, I don't think she had to worry about being deported. I think she was doing it so her husband could get a pardon for those charges he was convicted of years ago. That's what I think. She could say what she wants, but that's what I think.
County after a Friday night mass shooting. That suspect now in custody. The sheriff tells us that those victims were killed in 4 separate locations.
It's just not a happening chance. You've got a family member actually murdering his family.
Chaos and sadness have overcome the Clay County community after a Friday night mass shooting claimed the lives of 6 people. 24-year-old Derica Moore, now the suspect in this case. 4 of those victims are family members of his.
His father, his brother, and his uncle. And the 7-year-old child was actually going to be his second cousin. So that's 4 family members.
Clay County Sheriff Eddie Scott says the initial call came in around 7 p.m. After 4 hours of extensive searching, they were able to find and arrest Moore. The sheriff says Moore was driving a vehicle that he had stolen from one of the people he killed. Sheriff Scott says situations like this one can shake up any community.
We're a small community, and it's just like anywhere across the country with this type of gun violence. I mean, it rattles you. It rattled our community. I mean,
Scott says Moore is charged with murder, but more charges are expected. The Sheriff's Scott says that an arraignment for Moore is slated for Monday afternoon at 1 p.m. That time could change, however.
Okay, so there was a 7-year-old girl who also lost her life in this, and we're going to talk about it because the mother has come out and spoken. This man just went on a whole rampage.
Clay County, Michelle Martin, WTVA 9 News.
But I tried to do all I, can to help her, to save her. But I couldn't. And that's weighing heavy on my heart.
As we mentioned, one of the 6 victims was a child. 7-year-old Makayla Guin was shot in the head at that second location. The little girl's family, as you would imagine, just heartbroken. WTVA's Tanaya McQueen talked to Makayla's mother, who says part of her died when she lost her child that night. Tanaya is live in West Point with her emotional interview.
There's just not enough words to describe the pain that LaShonda Guins must be dealing with. Little Makayla was so happy, so bright, and full of so much joy, and she brought so much life into their home. And now this family is left to deal with a loss that no one can understand. Now, LaShonda Guins was actually at that home when everything happened. They lived on Blake Road. It was a place the family felt safe. It was their sanctuary, but that peace was shattered just last night. Now, LaShonda's cousin, Derica Moore, is accused of murdering her daughter. LaShonda says she actually saw her child died right in front of her other 2 children, a heartbreak no mother should ever have to experience.
I can't help but to feel like, I could have did more, but I tried to do all I, can to help her, to save her, but I couldn't. And that's weighing heavy on my heart because, it might have been more. What if I did this and what if I did that? It would have been, a better outcome. But I just don't know. I tried.
The family is now focused on remembering and honoring little Michaela's life. They're asking for prayers tonight as they deal with this unimaginable heartbreak. Tonight at 10, I'll share more of this emotional interview, and I'll talk to the little girl's grandfather, and I'll have how he now has to hold this family all together after this unimaginable loss. Live in Clay County, Sanaya McQueen, WTVA 9 News.
Okay, we're going to go to some of this. We're going to go to some of the press conference. We're going to listen to just a few minutes of the press conference.
No, he on this side now, set up. Yeah, you can have 2 bald heads on one side. 6:56 p.m. Clay County E911 received a call in regards to gunshot victims at 299 Blake Road in Cedar Bluff, which is going to be in the western part of Clay County. Deputies arrived on the scene at 7:03 p.m. The investigators revealed the following: that on January the 9th, Derek Moore, as you see here on the screen to my left, black male aged 24, allegedly shot and killed Glenn Moore, age 67, Willie Ed Gewins, 55, and Quentin Moore, 33, at a residence located at 123 David Hill, Cedar Bluff, Mississippi. Upon arrival, deputies discovered the gunshot wounds to the head. The men were pronounced deceased by Clay County Medical Examiner. Moore then allegedly stole a Ford F-150 aluminum in color belonging to the deceased brother, Quentin Moore. It is believed that Derek Moore then traveled to 299 Blake Road, where we initially got the first 911 call. Once at that residence on Blake Road, Moore forced his way into the home and attempted to commit a sexual battery while armed with a handgun. At some point, Moore, in front of witnesses, allegedly shot and killed a 7-year-old female at the home. Upon arrival, deputies discovered the 7-year-old had.
Now, hold up. How old did they say this man is? Did they say he's 24? Did they say this man is 24 years old? Please tell me they did not just say this man's 24 years old. He looks old as I don't know what. Byron said 24. Damn, he lived a hard jazz life. Okay, he looks very old to be 24. He's going to act like he was crazy. Watch.
Suffered from apparent gunshot wound to the head. The 7-year-old was pronounced deceased by the Clay County Medical Examiner, Alvin Carter. It is believed that Moore then fled to the residence on Blake Road in the stolen truck, and at some point traveling to 1965 Siloam Griffin Road in the western part of Clay County. During the investigations, Clay County investigators were directed to this Griffin Road residence by a 911 call. Upon arrival, investigators discovered the stolen truck hidden behind the house. While at the home, Clay County investigators discovered apparent forced entry to the rear of the residence. This led to the discovery of 2 deceased males. They were identified as Barry Bradley and Samuel Bradley from Columbus. Both men appeared to have suffered gunshot wounds to the head and were pronounced deceased at the scene by a Clay County Medical Examiner. At this point, law enforcement established a perimeter. Moore was later taken into custody without incident at the intersection of Pine Grove Road and Joe Myers Road in western Clay County. He was taken in custody by members of the Mississippi Highway Patrol, Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, the U.S. Park Service, U.S. Marshals, and other law enforcement agencies. Once in custody, investigators discovered that the vehicle Moore was operating had allegedly been stolen from the residence on Silo and Griffith Road where the two males were discovered in the house. Moore is currently charged with first-degree murder. That charge will be upgraded here shortly to capital murder, with additional murder charges forthcoming with conjunction with the district attorney's office. Clay County investigators are coordinating with the Mississippi Bureau of Investigations, the Mississippi Criminal Laboratory, and the Clay County Medical Officers and the district attorney's office. A preliminary hearing right now is scheduled for Monday, January the 12th, 2026 at the Clay County Court Complex. Again, that is subject to change. This safe apprehension of our suspect was only possible due to the assistance of our local, state, and federal partners who responded quickly to our community. I will say at this point, we do not know a motive for these acts. We are continuing to work with all our partners to complete a full and thorough investigation. Again, this is ongoing, and information subject to change. We're asking anybody out in the public that has any additional information to please contact the Sheriff's Office or the Golden Triangle Crime Stoppers with this. We want to say that we all lift our hearts in prayer for the victims and families. Again, this is really, really shaking our community. And for me, almost 30 years in this is one of the toughest ones we had to work. So again, our job right now is to thoroughly investigate, make sure that we get our district attorney's office everything that they need to prosecute.
Okay, so that is so nefarious. Prayers and condolences, all right? Prayers and condolences to the family of the victim. 6 people he killed. Okay, it's like he just snapped and just started going from one place to another, shooting everybody. And who did he try to assault? Okay, just crazy. Absolutely nefarious. The devil is always busy. Now, I'm about to close out the broadcast, but before I do, let me remind you all again to make sure you have your non-perishable food items, plenty of water, flashlights, batteries, candles, matches, lighters, what have you, generators if you can afford one, and all the things that you need. Okay, make sure you're stocking up on these things and have someone that you can barter with. Now, let's just, before we leave, wrap it up and say what all Trump has done. Okay, what all Trump has done in the past 2 weeks. All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it before we roll out of here. Okay, he's threatened. First of all, this is just in the last week. Threatened to another strike on Venezuela if Delcy Rodriguez doesn't cooperate. All right, and we already know that he snatched up, did a snatch and grab on President Maduro and his wife, but now threatening a second strike on Venezuela if Delcy Rodriguez doesn't cooperate and do exactly what he says and how he says. Okay, and he says that he's the one who's running stuff in Venezuela and the U.S. Okay, he forced Venezuela to export $2 billion worth of oil to the U.S. in a deal with Washington. Okay, if claims claims to control both countries. Okay, and so he gets the profit when he forced them to give up to export $2 billion worth of oil to the U.S. in a Washington deal. Well, who's getting all that cash? If he's the one that's in charge of Venezuela and the United States, I have several questions. Okay, who's going to profit? Okay, he met with oil execs, and we see how that all turned out with his sneaky self. All right, and let's not forget how during the meeting he actually got up and walked over to the window to look out at the at the ballroom that he was having built. Okay, because he really wanted them to all get up and go look out the window too. That's what he wanted. He wanted them to go pay attention to it so he could boast and brag and gloat as per usual. Okay, so anyway, what else did this fool do? Met with the oil execs who rejected him, threatened military action against Colombia, accused President Gustavo Petro of manufacturing Coca-Cola, right, and having it brought to the U.S., threatened to invade Greenland and said that, and then now it looks like he wants to buy it, or not buy it, but make it a 51st state. Had them seize 2 Russian oil tankers. Okay, lied on Renee Nicole Good and said that she was vicious and violent and tried to, had the officer in fear of his life. Okay, made his representatives spend buy billions of dollars on mortgage bonds. Okay, supposedly to help with housing affordability, but it's really just going to help, probably help existing homeowners because they'll be easier to refinance them. Then he tried to demote Senator Mark Kelly. Okay, tried to demote him from his rank and also mess up his military pay. Threatened Iran. Okay, he's already threatened Nigeria. We know that. Okay, launched an investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell. All right. And then tried to come up with more bogus charges for Letitia James. All right. Claimed that she was paying had made long time payments to her hairstylist. Did I leave anything out? Okay, he said yesterday he needed something to grab, but he wouldn't grab Carolyn Levitt. Well, I would hope not. She's a married woman. Okay, and what does he need to grab on people for? And where was he going to grab something? By the ussy, as he said before? Okay, it's just all so nefarious. It is just all so nefarious. At the end of the day, Trump is a whole hot mess. Desmond says he sent me some breaking news. I hope this has to do with what we're talking about. Hold on. Let's see what's going on here. All right, so this is interesting. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Okay, we're going to have to talk about this. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Hold on. I'm going to have to get another article. Now listen to this. This came in about 47 minutes ago. Thank you, Desmond. All right, here's what they say. The House GOP seeks to hold Bill Clinton in contempt for skipping Epstein deposition. The House Oversight Committee wanted depositions from the former president and his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, as part of its probe into Jeffrey Epstein. So the Republican-led House Oversight Committee announced Tuesday that it will seek to hold former President Bill Clinton in contempt of Congress after he failed to appear for a deposition as part of the panel's probe into the late convicted ex-offender Jeffrey Epstein. Trump, where's your deposition? House Oversight Chair James Comer said that because Clinton decided not to show up for his lawful subpoena, the panel would vote on holding the former president in contempt next week. They said, we've communicated with President Clinton's legal team for months now, giving them opportunity after opportunity to come in to give us a day, and they continue to delay. Okay, delay to the point that we've had no idea whether they're going to show up today or not. I think it was very disappointing. Now, the committee had scheduled a deposition with Clinton for Tuesday morning, as well as a deposition for former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for Wednesday, and as a result of subpoenas that were issued last year. So House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters Monday night that it would be contempt of Congress if the Clintons did not attend this week's depositions. Now, in a letter to Comer, the Clintons said they didn't plan to appear for the scheduled depositions, arguing that the subpoenas are legally invalid and citing legal analysis prepared by two law firms that they said were provided to the committee on Monday, saying every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences, the Clintons wrote. For us, now is that time. Clinton, please sit down. Now, I find this all interesting. So Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Now, let me say this. I don't agree with what Trump's doing, trying to go after his political rivals and just blame things on the left, things of which he is likely guilty, such as being in the Epstein files and whatnot, and doing nefarious things to boot. But what I find interesting is that Bill and Hillary Clinton have crawled out of the woodwork, and now they want us to think that they're doing stuff for the country. So what now? Okay. Said now is that time. Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people. Y'all are not fighting for us. Sit down somewhere. Okay, no matter the consequences. Like they're just ready to walk fiercely into battle and die on that sword. No, you're not. Okay, you're not. For us, now is the time. Well, now is the time because you've been subpoenaed to talk about something that we all know you don't want to talk about. Okay, you don't want to talk about it. Because here's the thing. What I happen to know is that Bill Clinton is likely Bubba. Okay, in my opinion, I can't prove it. But also, I happen to have researched years ago some very nefarious things about Bill and Hillary Clinton. And some of it was in those nefarious emails, specifically about Hillary. But there was other stuff which Bill was mentioned also. I can't substantiate those things that I read, But I absolutely believe they were true. And if they were true, and I think that they are, this, in my opinion, is why they don't want to show up and testify, okay, at all. And so anyway, I think they're, almost as nefarious as Trump when it comes to hanging out with Epstein. So with that all being said, they say House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters Monday night that it would be contempt of Congress. Okay, we read over that part. I'm trying to find my place here. Oh, for us, now is that time. The Clintons also addressed the prospect of the committee voting to hold them in contempt. They say, we expect you will direct your committee to seek to hold us in contempt. You will say it is not our decision to make, okay? But we have made it. Now you have to make yours. Honey, this is going to get juicy. Did y'all hear it? It's like everybody's talking trash, and I love it. Bill Clinton said, and I quote, you'll say that it's not our decision to make, but we've made it. And now make yours. Basically saying, it's your move. What you gonna do, okay? Are they playing chess or checkers? Let's get into it. So anyway, I find it all interesting. Despite everything that needs to be done to help our country, you are on the cusp of bringing Congress to a halt to pursue a rarely used process literally designed to result in our imprisonment, they say. This is not the way out of America's ills, and we will forcefully defend ourselves. It's about to get ugly. Comer subpoenaed the Clintons to appear for depositions for testimony related to the former president's relationship with Epstein. They have a whole lot of nerve. Trump was closer to Epstein than Bill was. Where is his deposition? The committee originally scheduled the couple's depositions for last October. Now, on Tuesday, they say Comer said the panel had voted on a bipartisan manner unanimously to subpoena them. Said no one's accused Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions. Like the Queen, I have several questions. And that's why the Democrats voted along with Republicans to subpoena Bill Clinton. Okay, so what do you all have to say about all of this? What do you all have to say about all of this? Because I, for one, find it all so interesting. Okay? They said no one's accused him of any wrongdoing. Now, with that all being said, they say in December, Comer said that he would postpone the depositions for a second time because the Clintons needed to attend a funeral. And so they say, but he said the Clintons' lawyer, David Kendall, was unwilling to provide any alternative dates for their testimony. So he was setting the deposition for mid-January. Okay, please pay attention. Now, former President Clinton's spokesperson, Angel Urena, said of Comer in December that for months, we've been offering the same exact thing he accepted from the rest, but he refuses and won't explain why. Said he refuses and just will not explain why. I find it all so interesting. Now, goes on to say, apparently referring to when he said they won't explain why, apparently they're referring to the committee's acceptance of written statements rather than in-person depositions from some other former government officials, including former U.S. Attorney General. Okay, make of that what you will, Urena added. Hillary Clinton spokesperson Nick Merrill also said in a statement last month, since this started, we've been asking what the hell Hillary Clinton has to do with any of this, and he hasn't been able to come up with an answer. Now, the first set of Epstein files released by the Department of Justice in December contained numerous pictures of Bill Clinton, who Urena said had flown on Epstein's plane for Clinton's foundation trips in the early 2000s, before Epstein was charged with the S crimes, of course. Now, there was a series of undated pictures, for example, with Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, and what looked like a trip to Thailand. It's unclear when the photos were taken. Former President Clinton has denied any wrongdoing and has said that he was unaware of Epstein's crimes. Now, he has said that he cut ties with Epstein before Epstein was accused in 2006 of having relations with a minor. Urena said in December that all photos and references to Clinton in the government's files should be released. So Urena said in a post on X after the release that the White House hasn't been hiding these files for months. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, they haven't been hiding them for months, only to dump them late on a Friday to protect Bill Clinton. I think that should be has. It clearly says it hasn't. Release says that the White House hasn't been hiding. Oh, okay, that's what they meant to say. So the White House hasn't been hiding these files for months, only to dump them on a Friday to protect Bill Clinton. This is about shielding themselves. Okay, that's why they've been hiding them. Okay, this is about shielding themselves from what comes next or from what they'll try and hide forever. Okay, so they can release as many grainy 20-plus-year-old photos as they want. But this isn't about Bill Clinton. Never has, never will be. We already know that. Trump is clearly deflecting. Okay, before the files were publicly released, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles told Vanity Fair that she had read the Epstein case file and said Trump was wrong to suggest there was anything incriminating about Clinton in the records. Remember when she cleared that up? Now, the Justice Department has said it is still reviewing millions of pages of files potentially related to Epstein for possible release. They're supposed to have had all this done by December the 19th. Okay, and here we are, almost going to be in January the 19th in just a second. Oh, so interesting. Okay. Oh, so interesting. So anyway, with that all being said, absolutely nefarious. Ever said Trump visited the Clintons, Epstein visited the Clinton White House 17 times. Byron B said if the White House walls could talk. Okay, and then Mel said Pam Bondi is hiding the truth. They all are, in my opinion. Yeah, they absolutely all are. With that all being said, listen, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. I might be back later on, you all. If I do, it'll be about 7 or 7:30. Okay, so everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right. And each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Until next time, I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.
Hey, yo, Nick, hit him with that flavor. All in my skin. God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece. This time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got